friends. This is Yoga Light. Today we are exploring the inner being as part of an overview of yoga's physical practices. There are many descriptions of our inner being. You need to find a description that works for you and not be too attached to it, because new experiences and progress will require you to change your views. You need something that can be applied in a wide variety of situations and perspectives. I use a description influenced by Sri Aurobindo and the Mother's works. When dealing with the inner being, we have 4 themes. These are the illusory nature of reality, the subliminal with its contact with various planes of being, the higher consciousness, and the soul personality. These 4 parts each have their own aspect to practice. When approaching yoga from the inner being, you are doing a psychological practice. In this brief overview, we can say that any yoga will have some aspects of this approach. At the end, we see where the physical practice fits in. The first part is illusion. The transcendent puts forth a supreme consciousness, and out of the infinite possibilities, the creative power of Maya selects a limited set of these possibilities, still infinite but not exhaustive, and sets it in motion. The broad outlines of that original intent, which we can call the cosmic egg, are set forth, and the supreme consciousness, through its self-imposed limitation, involves, condensing and diminishing itself, becoming layers of being that gradually descend into ignorance until it reaches matter, forming the physical universe. It does this for self-enjoyment, as it experiences action as blissful. It does this because it is creative fun. These layers operate via principles, rules, or laws unique to each. Each layer is a subtle world or universe unto itself, with its own beings, events, and forces at play. The original intent is still present in the physical world. All the possibilities are dormant, as the essential substance is still the original consciousness that has taken on these forms of the physical world. These dormant principles awaken into the world of matter, a principle on its own, and begin to operate and organize so that life arises and souls can create forms to inhabit. This slow process of terrestrial evolution gives rise to single cells, to the plethora of plants and animals, and eventually to humans. Note that Darwinian evolution is limited to a description of the physical mechanism. We have 3 things. The first is cosmic law, described by physics as the laws by which things interact and work themselves out. Karma is the momentum from the past set in motion at the origin. Drivers obey traffic laws, but where those cars are going is karma. With these 2 is a process of spiritual evolution. Partly this is the original intent, the original karma, as nature slowly works to fulfill that intent through a play of different forces and powers in the field of ignorance. The main ignorance is division. Things seem to be a multiplicity of separate objects and players seeking to fulfill limited aims from limited visions when, in reality, in the higher consciousness, these are part of the oneness with the supreme vision. There is a destination, but many ways of arriving there in the creative play. There is both a multiplicity and an essential unity at the same time. The original intent set the universe to realize the self, a return to the full light of the supreme. The acorn contains the oak. A second aspect of spiritual evolution is the pressure of the higher consciousness above influencing the play of forces. There are contacts and exchanges between the higher worlds and the lower ones. In its purest form, this is grace. The higher consciousness draws up and draws out the possibilities inherent in the lower forms. So there are 2 fundamental things to draw from this description. First, we exist in a shared set of layered, interwoven worlds of being. The second is that we need to have a place for our awareness of these other worlds. Our sense experience, conditioning with our upbringing and education, and the consciousness that our form gives us in terms of our nature all invest us in the outer world of perception. Our experience shows that our complex being is made of layers: our physical body, our nervous system, subtle body, emotions, thoughts, and intuitions. However, we also have experiences showing that we are not limited to the physical form. One line of practice is to contact these higher layers of consciousness, above the ignorance, layers of harmony and oneness of light and power, and allow them to assist our progress and development. We can awaken more of the potential within us. When we look at social interactions, we notice that we exchange energy with other people. We can sense the crowd, feel the pressure from the audience, or the shift of mood at a sporting event. We can feel drained by a depressed person, or be infected with someone's anger or foul mood. We can also find people who seem to give energy and inspiration, or teachers, where peace reigns, where insight is more common in their presence. We can feel their energy and witness how events around them flow. There are experiences where we have foreknowledge or the sense of events at a distance. We think of someone who then appears, or we have a feeling something is happening or happening to someone, and we have it confirmed later with the story of the events. There are two things. One is that we can sense things beyond our physical form and its instruments. We also receive and project energies. These energies have an intention, a quality, and a characteristic action. You can sense anger, and you can also become angry. You can sense someone's thoughts, and you can also take up those thoughts. The second is that there is an illusion. You can mistake the picking up of thought or feeling or any energy in its intention and action and take it as your own. You put them into the forms of your ego. You think you thought it. You think you made the thought. Your mind dramatizes the emotions into a story related to your ego to show you that it is your feelings and your emotions. The subliminal consciousness beneath the surface ego and subconscious memory is not limited to our physical senses. It is connected to the layers of being in the world around us. As we become more subtle and our consciousness widens, these experiences become deeper and more frequent. These extra senses can be trained. We can become aware of the interchange of ourselves with a wider world, and we must learn to integrate this into our way of being and perspective and realize the implications. In the 90s, I used to go to Tibetan Buddhist workshops. It was a small group, usually with different lamas teaching through an interpreter. But after a few of these, my friend and I realized that you could hold a question in your mind and the teacher would answer it without asking. We experimented with this in several teachings. One time we had an English-speaking teacher, a nun from Australia. I had a question concerning spiritual evolution, one outside the topic of discussion. When I held the question in my mind to see what would happen, she stopped, turned to me, and said, "I don't know anything about that, hon," and resumed. The essential idea is that you can tap into higher consciousness. If the teacher can see you, you want to see the source of the teaching. The universe is made of condensed forms of consciousness, and there is a witness within all of it at every level in every instance. It is more than awareness. If you tune into this level in the Buddhist tradition, it is an ocean of compassion for all suffering. In yoga, it is love. Even more fundamentally, it is bliss, power, and truth. If you go far enough, not just as a mental working out of the consequences, which is helpful, but go far enough, you can experience this truth. A direct experience transforms everything. The world we are presented with by our conditioning and habits of the sense mind is an illusion. Illusion means that it is incomplete. Things are concealed, and it is an approximation. It's imaginary. Our sense of self is as well. As we become quieter and more observant of the mind, the sources of thoughts and feelings can become clearer. For instance, teachings can be passed directly from above or from a teacher. There are traditions where the teacher does not only receive access to the stream of knowledge, light, or vibration, but can transfer these before or after death. We draw our thoughts and feelings from a universal nature, but tap into only a small stream of possibilities. We have to journey into the unknown. Our physical form and conditions limit our bandwidth, though through practice, we can widen. We can go higher and deeper. With some dreams, ones that go deeper than revealing psychological processes, we can experience or get a symbolic representation of our contacts and interactions with other planes. This can also happen in meditation, trance work, out-of-body experiences, near-death experiences, art, and music. and some people have a mediumistic or special opening to certain layers or regions. The possibilities are endless, but common ones include having guides, talking to the dead, seeing symbolic actions and visions, entering places with no physical counterpart, visits by teachers or deities, and a direct inner knowing. In addition, there are experiences of energy, lights and forces, vibrations, and sound patterns of these worlds. One can tap into a higher consciousness via direct knowing or inspired thought as the higher consciousness takes up the mental power and uses it as a means of expression. We sense things for which there are no words and only poetry can approximate. There can be vast fields of understanding that come in a flash or vision and are diminished as they lower into a mental description. There can also be infusions of higher emotions as compassion, great peace, bliss, immortality, and love come through. One can feel true compassion, not just mental compassion, and it has a transformative power for the self and others around us. Intractable problems are suddenly solved, or our former outlooks are profoundly changed. We can also contact lower and negative forces, such as people consumed by desires, rage, and misguided beliefs based on falsehoods. Lower forces include not only dramas, but also mental energies of falsehood. These energies can act on people who create expressions of them in the material world. Desire, for instance, doesn't matter whether it's good or bad, but the desire energy itself can be used by other beings and forces. In our normal lives, this is often the case with advertising or with con artists. One time, while meditating in a small room with an open window, I could hear the very faint sound of an announcer at a school sporting event. I couldn't make out the words. As I got more silent, I felt something and could see with inner vision this small, glowing, potato chip-shaped being coming over the neighbor's house, entering through the open window, and entering me. Suddenly a strong craving for snacks arose in me. Truth, not the logical truth of the mental reason, but the deeper truth of spirit has the force of action and occurrence. Knowledge at the deeper or higher level always has an action and consequence. A third fundamental view is seeing events in our lives have a symbolic meaning. The Lord works in mysterious ways. The key is recognition. Our soul comes to inhabit a human form, and this form is made from nature. You can say that your physical body is made of the universal material world, made of molecules and form structures, which in turn are patterns of energy. But you are also part of the universal vitality of life, universal emotional regions, and universal thoughts from the mental energies. Your form and its conditioning limit what you can receive and work with, and your subconscious keeps you on the surface tied to the senses. But the deeper subliminal consciousness works on many layers and with greater capacities. One limitation is the idea that the physical is everything and that thoughts are only chemistry in the brain. But this is reversed. You can also find that we have the ability to direct things via the power of our mind. This is done via concentration, sometimes with visualization and affirmation, or the support of rituals or mantras, what most people call manifestation. A complex vortex of different forces shapes what emerges, but the mind is a player. I once had a yoga student who listened when I pointed out that what you concentrate on affects the things that you experience in life. You can shape events and be drawn to encounters, something beyond your simple reactions and way of interpreting events. He took this to heart, returned later, and told me about working on his bike. He wanted to get a particular set of handlebars for his Harley that he had seen from a famous chopper. He said that he would study pictures of those handlebars before work. He was a pipe welder. He thought about it for quite a while because he did have the skill to weld a set, though he probably would have to ruin a couple of them before he got it right. Then came Sturgis, the motorcycle rally. He went that year, and when he rode up, the chopper who had designed the handlebars was surrounded by a television crew shooting a feature on him. They wanted the crowd to ask him questions, and no one was coming up with any. My friend asked him about the handlebars from that bike and whether he would offer them for sale, and the chopper said, "Funny you should mention it, I just got those ready for my new catalog out next month." So my friend realized that his concentration was bound up with the arriving at the right place at the right time with the right question, and that gave him a handle on his mind and life. Things have a symbolic aspect to them. Our life is a vehicle of the soul. Our life is a symbol play of spirit. Now, as you explore this, you realize that you didn't make the universe, and your ability to shape events is limited. In many cases, it seems to concentrate you rather than you concentrate on it. Or you recognize a possibility out of a deep sense in the subliminal consciousness and then encounter it. So it is not simply wish fulfillment. The concentration usually seems to be either more engaging than the normal noise of the mind, or it is very subtle and easy to pass unnoticed until after the fact. One has to separate and distinguish the many happenings of the mind. We give consciousness at the various layers a form and function, and these go out and act on the subtle world. They attempt to organize and create their intent, to manifest. The strength depends on how well made they are. One can sense how receptive the world is. There can be a subtle sense of opportunities. Around us are shared subtle worlds that are created by minds. Like lucid dreams, you are able to shape them as the consciousness is less dense and more malleable. Shared worlds exist independently of you. Others can enter and create within them. They have some measure of substantialness and persistence. You act in these worlds, as do others and even beings native to the planes of existence that they are made in. When you die and leave your body, you may persist and act in these worlds until that part of the being decays or is cast off. My friend was in Chopper World, communicating with people he had yet to meet. He was drawn into a flow of events. When the student is ready, the teacher appears because you are already being prepared and communicating with them. Close to the physical world we inhabit, with our surface being, these worlds largely mirror our own. They are often slightly ahead in time, and our ability to sense these planes in the subliminal gives us foreknowledge. We can see what is forming and coming into being as these forms and forces influence material existence. You may not know the details, but you can sense where things are headed. You can feel it coming. We create forms via our minds that are given a subtle reality. So if you constantly get enraged by political events, these energies go out and try to act on your intentions. They may fail, and the energy can return in a different but related form. This is one idea about karma. You can tap into powers such as those behind mantras and use them to influence events. For instance, Ganesha mantras will bring the knowledge needed to overcome obstacles. They will open doors to insights, perceptions, and new encounters. They can help you to recognize the opportunities and resources needed. The ability to manifest is part of a complex web of forces. The power itself is neutral and often distorted to ego aims and desires. Our subliminal consciousness is connected and aware on many realms, but this is buried within and covered over by our subconscious. We may have awareness of something, but the form given to it by our surface mind will be subject to our own ego, desires, and preferences, and the scope of our experiences. Many things happen to us in life that represent our own journey and other forces. These can be symbolic, such as the handlebars, but often we lack a sufficient frame of reference to know what is being symbolized. As we get further away in time or gather more experience, we can see where it leads or have insight into why something happened, what it is connected to, and the role we played. As we become more aware and able to connect to our subliminal consciousness, things reveal themselves. Most teachers have two aspects. The first are the teachings and practices they expound, and the second is their connection to the divine. The teachings help us to enter into the shared world and emulate their connection. The implication is that we need a spiritual intention to connect to the divine, to expand our awareness, to gain the equality that sees and appreciates all things, to feel love, peace, bliss. We need an aspiration to experience the truth. We must shape how we look at the world and the forms we create. It opens us to currents and connects us to forces supporting these aspirations. This is where receptivity, practice, and surrender become essential. If you seek to evolve, you will be met with support from above. In part 2, we will look at the soul. If you found this video helpful, please like and subscribe. Until next time.